Tony, you've been right before with your predictions because every year we make these prediction videos. Some we get wrong, but some we get really right. So we're going to be predicting what's going to happen in 2021 with the biggest camera companies. This is the Picture This Photography podcast. And if you haven't already subscribed to it, you can find it anywhere that you get your podcasts. And when you subscribe, it supports us and it's free.
We have mind-blowing predictions about Canon, Nikon, Sony, Panasonic, Fuji, and even Olympus. So stay tuned. But first, we want to thank our sponsor, Squarespace.
Whether you need a website, a portfolio, a store, or even a little members area for your photo clients, you can make it happen with Squarespace. And it's so easy. If you can drag and drop, you can make your very own, and you can get 10% off. Go to squarespace.com/Chelsea and use the coupon code Chelsea to get that 10% off, and you get a free trial, 14 days, no credit card needed, so you can try before you buy. Thanks, Squarespace.
I just set up a new Squarespace website this week. It's winthiscamera.com, where you can win a Canon R5, a Sony A7R Mark IV, or a Nikon Z7 Mark II. And it looks great, right? It looks better than our other stores.
Yeah, it was
And
easy.
I set it up in like an hour because it's so easy to make Squarespace websites look great and work on all mobile devices, and then they give you these nice analytics. So
Yeah.
check it out.
All right, let's start with Olympus because I think Olympus is in this really interesting position right now and people really want to know what's happening with them. So if you don't already know, Olympus sold off their camera division to a company called JIP, and they do not specialize in cameras, but they have bought other companies you might be familiar with, like the laptop division of Sony. If you're familiar with the Sony Vaio laptop, they bought those. And I'm a little concerned about what they're going to do with the Olympus camera brand, but I do think if there's any development that Olympus was working on, they will honor that and we will see that come out in 2021. So I'm thinking that we will see a few things.
Yeah, and they probably won't be branded Olympus, but rather they'll be branded OMD cameras. And one thing I can't figure out is if they're going in one of two directions. Olympus has had a focus on wildlife, and that's a profitable segment. But wildlife photography and wildlife lenses and gear requires a lot of R&D. It's actually pretty hard. So they might do that. On the other hand, JIP might decide to simply capitalize on the Olympus OMD brand and make inexpensive, possibly even like Chinese manufactured cameras that they could sell in markets where Olympus is popular, like in Japan. So we might see really sort of low-end, attractive cameras that people could pick up at the pharmacy or the electronics store.
Yeah, that's a possibility.
I don't know, but I'm actually leaning towards that second market because that's kind of what JIP did with Sony.
Yeah, and wasn't there also a rumor about the pen cameras coming out?
Yes, Micro-Four-Thirds-Rumors.com thinks that there's going to be a new pen camera, one of their compact Micro-Four-Thirds cameras, and people want that, so.
Okay.
Speaking of Sony, Sony happens to also make cameras besides just computers, and they're one of the most exciting camera manufacturers. Some of this credit goes to SonyAlphaRumors.com, who is already releasing some information about upcoming releases, like the Sony A9 Mark III, which I just did a whole dedicated video for. It looks like the A9 Mark III, their high-end sports camera, is going to be positioned to take on the Canon R5. So it's going to be an 8K video monster with a 45 megapixel sensor, probably the A7S III body with a flip screen and that beautiful electronic viewfinder. And I think Sony's going to find a way to crank up the frames per second for still photos from 20, even higher, to 25 or maybe even 30 frames per second, all with no viewfinder blackout. I hope they tackle the banding and the lag problems, and they're going to ask a lot for it. I think it's going to be like $4,500, maybe $5,000.
Okay. Did their previous camera also have rolling shutter issues?
Not the A9.
Okay. All right. We also think that we're going to see an A7 IV because I think that Sony's not going to let Canon get away with coming out with these R5 and R6 cameras that are so successful, and they're going to want to compete with that. So we're thinking the A7 IV is going to be 30 megapixels, 4K 60, 20 frames per second, and it's going to have like the A7S III body, but have the lower end EVF. So the price of that would compete with the R6 and be about $2,500.
Yeah, and that still leaves a big gap because right now Sony doesn't have a competitor to the $1,200 Nikon Z5 or the $900 Canon RP. So I'm also hoping we see something like an A5, which is positioned closer to like $1,500 and is full frame. Because they feel that low end with APS-C cameras now, but I think they need a cheap full frame camera. So I hope we see that too. They have some lenses on the roadmap at SonyAlphaRumors.com, specifically a 35mm f1.4 GM lens and a 16mm f1.8. But I think they're going to try to take on the f1.2 primes from Canon and give us a decent 85mm f1.2 and maybe a 50mm f1.2 as well.
Yeah, I think glass is important, so I think that Sony's going to have to develop their glass even more to compete with Canon.
People love big, fast glass right now.
I'm also, this is like a hopeful prediction for me, but I'm hoping that they come out with affordable long glass once again to compete with Canon. Canon just came out with the 600mm f11 and the 800mm f11. They got really good reviews. I really like them. I think other people were excited about them too. And so it'd be great if people could get into wildlife and sports with a Sony at a more affordable level like Canon made possible. So hopefully long, less expensive glass from Sony.
Yeah, and that seems like a sure thing. Like if Canon makes something and it's successful and popular, of course, Sony will follow along and do something similar so people don't leave. Sony also announced that they're going to be making a drone, which makes total sense because Sony wants to own the entire video production sequence from capturing the footage to processing it to actually displaying it on the TV. And right now, there's one company that handles basically all professional drone productions, and that's DJI. All the way from vloggers to professional movie companies are using DJI drones, and Sony wants a piece of that. I think they'll start by making professional grade drone cameras. And then maybe 2022, 2023, we'll start to see some consumer grade drones. We do aerial shots all the time for our vlogs, and right now I have to use a DJI drone, even though I film everything else with a Sony. So if I had one set of color science and one set of codecs that I could work with, that would make a lot of sense for me.
I'm also hoping that Sony starts competing with the cloud service that Canon has. I'm just really wanting Sony to compete with Canon. I love the cloud service idea. I didn't think that it is perfectly executed with Canon right now, but I think it's an idea that needs to come to fruition and needs to work well and needs to be easy for the younger generation to adapt these cameras comfortably.
It would make perfect sense because Sony also makes smartphones. So what I envision is you take a picture with your Sony camera and it would connect hopefully through cellular networks and store that file into a cloud service where it could be synced to your computer or to Google Drive or to Creative Cloud, wherever you wanted it. Or not synced. They're not going to do it without your choice. After the break, we're going to talk about Nikon, Canon, Fujifilm, and Panasonic, and some of them are pretty crazy predictions. But first, a word from our sponsor, Squarespace.
Right? Whether you need your own website or portfolio, or if you want a place to put your photos that you're taking for clients, a members only section, you can make all of that happen with Squarespace. And their websites are extremely easy to make. I think Tony and I have made about 10 now between the two of us. And you can try it out and see if you like it and if it's easy for you by getting a 14-day free trial. You don't have to put in a credit card. You just set it up, and if you like it, you can go live and get 10% off with the coupon code Chelsea. So go to squarespace.com/Chelsea, and yeah, it's down in the link below.
They just launched a new feature where you can have a members only area on your website. And a lot of people are using that because they're teaching from home and they want to be able to give content to just the students who have subscribed.
Yeah.
And that's it, just they continue to expand in ways that small businesses need. It's awesome. Let's talk about Nikon and what we see happening in 2021 with their cameras.
Yeah, so the D850 was an extremely successful camera. Everyone loved that camera. I think it's the best DSLR of all time. It's my favorite. I still have it. I love it. And I think they're going to follow up with the D880 and improve upon it even more. I'm thinking 45 megapixels, 4K 60, 10 frames per second, and like $3,900.
Yeah, so basically they'll take the Z7 Mark II and make that the live view.
I
in
hope
the
so.
D850 because
Yeah.
the live view in the D850 is terrible.
Yeah.
Everything else is great until you put in live view, and then it's awful.
Okay, I'll give you that, but please stop talking about it like that, okay?
I think it's interesting because Nikon went all in on Z mount. And right now they're ranked like 5th or 6th in mirrorless manufacturers.
Yeah.
Like the Z mount did not take off like they hoped. But people are still buying Nikon DSLRs. And when we talk to people and we suggest, hey, what about a new D500, a new D850? They're like, oh yes, I would buy that in a second.
Yeah.
But they have no interest in the mirrorless cameras.
Actually, I asked people, we're doing our camera giveaway, and I asked them, which camera would you like? And a lot of people said a D850.
Really, they're disappointed that we only gave the dream mirrorless cameras.
I mean, like I told them, like, we're going to give cash too, so you can just buy your own D850. But, okay, so Nikon might be in a bit of financial trouble, but they have not lost their brand value. They have not lost their valued customers, and people still trust them. I still trust them. I still look forward to them coming out with a great camera. And so I'm holding out hope for Nikon.
Okay, well, here's to some new F-mount bodies,
I hope so.
including what I'm calling a D580, a successor to the very popular D500 sports and wildlife camera. I bet it'll have the same 20 megapixel sensor, though hopefully they upgrade it to 24 megapixels. I think it'll have 4K 60, and I bet it'll shoot like 14 frames per second, like something really high, because it's going to be a highly specialized camera for sports and wildlife. And I bet it'll cost a lot, like maybe $2,500 or maybe even closer to $3,000, which is crazy for an APS-C camera, right? But Nikon, on their new cameras, they've been asking so much for the MSRP. Like they ask a lot year 1, and then by like year 2 or 3, they've dropped the price by 40%.
I mean, it makes sense. The people that really want it and can afford it will buy it for more money. You'll be supporting Nikon because they need cash right now, and then they'll lower the price for everybody else. I think they're going to need to come out with a vlog-centric full-frame camera. Everyone else is doing it. Sony has one, Lumix has one, Canon has one, and I think that this is a part of the market that they're going to have to get in on, and they're almost all the way there anyway. They can do it easily. They just need that flip screen.
Side flip screen.
A side flip screen,
Don't
sorry.
put it below the camera where the tripod is.
They need to talk to some vloggers. Other companies do that. They bring in vloggers. They ask them what they want, what they need. They need to do that so they can have a proper flip screen and find out what vloggers need to get the job done. And I think they need to come out with that camera tone.
Yeah, and it's not just YouTubers anymore. Like 2020 was a cultural shift where more people than ever are working from home. People are creating content at home, and just being able to see yourself and have a camera that can autofocus on you is kind of a big deal, and it's a huge market, and that is going to continue on into 2021. So I bet they've already been working on it, and I hope we'll see it soon.
People hate that market, but you can't stop that train. I remember when vlogging cameras first came out, I heard so many comments that were like, oh, people just want to look at themselves. Absolutely, 100%, and people are making a lot of money doing it, which is why these companies need to get in on it.
Yeah, of course I want to look at myself. I'm beautiful. Like, have you seen me?
I saw you and you look beautiful. Okay, new lenses too. What do you think they're going to come out with?
I think they have to answer the f1.2 primes from Canon, because so many pros see those, and even if they don't buy them, they kind of drool over them. But we bought them, and like that's what we film on. That's what this is, an f1.2 50mm, and they're just amazing, and they have this unique look. So I think both Sony and Nikon are going to follow up with an 85mm f1.2, and they've already announced a 50mm f1.2. So that should be shipping soon. And then I think we'll see some telephoto lenses just filling in gaps, like a 100 to 400, 200 600, a 400 f2.8, a 600 f4, so people can actually shoot sports and wildlife.
I think a new 600 f4 would be nice. I have their current 600 f4, and it's good. It's a very good lens, but it's like 2 pounds heavier than Sony's option and Canon's option.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit dated, but
behind.
it's still workable. It's a little behind. And then goodbye Nikon. A lot of people are talking about them potentially closing. I don't think 2021 is the year that happens.
No, but I think we might start hearing rumors about it. Like Nikon has even hinted that the camera division has to be profitable to stick around, like in their official financial reports. And they've shifted their business as much as possible away from the camera division. And they've been cutting costs a lot. And now Olympus has shown the path out of the camera world.
We don't know that that's the path yet because JIP has not shown where they're bringing the brand.
No, but we know Olympus left the market.
Yeah.
So it could be possible that Nikon sees a sale to another company that thinks that they can make it actually profitable. I don't think we'll see that in 2021, but I think we'll see rumors about it as they start to consider it and weigh their options and talk to other companies. I bet some of it leaks, but I don't think we'll see that until later. Let's talk about Fujifilm.
Fujifilm is another brand I have so much affection for because the X-T4 is one of the most fun cameras to take pictures with.
Like lovable.
They're lovable. I just want to use them and have fun shooting and take street photos, and then, I don't know, they leave a little to be desired.
So FujiRumors.com has given us some concrete information, like the upcoming GFX 100S. Right now, this is Fuji's medium format camera. They have this 100 megapixel monster, which is super huge and expensive, but it's actually too big. Like, it's uncomfortable to hold and to carry.
It's funny when you see it in pictures and then see it in person.
Yeah.
Because it's just like a scaled up version of one of their normal size cameras.
Yeah, it has like a huge body, but still has tiny little flat buttons.
Yeah, it's like, it looks like a novelty camera or something.
So the rumor is that they're going to shrink that down into a more reasonable size, but it's not going to be a rangefinder. I thought they were going to have a GFX 100R, but it's going to be like a standard DSLR style with a viewfinder in the middle, but just a more reasonable, hand-holdable size.
Yeah, it was comically big.
And my personal thought, they're going to update the XH1. The XH1 was their sort of DSLR style big APS-C camera in the X mount, and it was largely targeted towards sports photographers, vloggers, and the XH1 never took off. It just wasn't the best. But I think they'll make it the best. I think the version 2 of that will be fantastic, and it will be high performance, and it'll have a battery that'll last forever. And it'll be very fast with like big, thick controls. You know, the X-T4 is gorgeous, but it still has kind of small controls. Like it's nice to use, but you wouldn't want to hold it all day. And I think this will be like their serious pro-grade camera. There's
something almost like delicate about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also think we'll start to see some new exciting lenses from Fuji. They've recently released a 50 millimeter f1.0. So like a 75 millimeter f1.5 equivalent. They're showing that they're trying to get full frame light gathering and background blur. And so I think we'll see that extend to their zooms, and we'll finally see some f1.8 zooms that'll give us that sort of holy trinity full frame lens equivalent background blur. So I think we'll see a 16 to 35 f1.8 and a 50 to 140 f1.8. Both those APS-C lenses in the f2.8 varieties need to be revved. They're old. So making them bigger and faster and higher quality makes sense to me.
Yeah, that makes sense. I also think they need firmware updates to improve on things that other companies are doing really well at, like autofocus. Because their autofocusing is still just a little flaky, and they're way behind now that Canon has like a stellar IAF, animal IAF. Sony's IAF and AF is really amazing. So I think that they need to improve on that.
Also, this becomes a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, but in the past, whenever we've reviewed a Fuji camera and complained about things, they promptly fix all the problems that we complain about with firmware updates. So I can predict all the stuff we complained about with the X-T4, they'll release firmware updates to fix. Like they'll improve the video autofocus and iDetect AF, and yeah.
Do you think that's really because of you? Because I think that's just because everybody complains about the same thing.
Maybe so. Maybe it's just because all the Fuji people tell me that I'm the only person on the planet experiencing that, and it's because I'm an idiot, and then Fuji fixes it. So let's talk about Panasonic Lumix.
Okay, let's talk about the Lumix, because they surprised me in a good way this year, so I'm excited about their 2021.
I think they'll put some energy into Micro Four Thirds and some into their full frame L mount. But I think the camera people are going to be most excited about is their Micro Four Thirds GH6. A follow-up to the GH4 and GH5 that we sort of built our channel on, recording videos on.
Yeah, we did.
I think this one will match the R5's 8K. I think now that the R5 has gone 8K, everybody feels like they need to be in that market. I know, who wants it, right? There is a Sony Micro Four Thirds sensor that will record 8K. So I think they'll use that and give us 8K 30, and I bet it will be raw, because the GH6 is all about like high video quality.
Okay.
But it's also a good stills camera traditionally, so I think it'll have a high frame rate, like 20 or maybe even 30 frames per second. But I think it'll still be limited to their depth from defocus contrast-based autofocus system, which we have never been satisfied with for video autofocus. Like, good for stills. They've done so much with it. But for tracking moving subjects in video, even in the S5, we found it just lacking. So they continuously make improvements, but I want them to go phase detect, and I don't think that 2021 is the year they do that.
I don't think that's happening, but okay.
I think this will be an expensive micro four thirds camera at like $3,000, but loyalists will definitely buy into it. With the Panasonic S5, Panasonic showed us that they could make smaller cameras than the original S1 and S1R. So I bet they'll release sequels to the S1 and S1R, probably very similar in specs, but incorporating more processing power and perhaps slightly smaller, more ergonomic bodies. We talked about how Nikon needed to release a full-frame vlogging camera, and I think Panasonic kind of needs to do the same thing. Like, the S5 could work for that, but it's $2,000, and vloggers really want to spend way less.
Do you think it's possible for them to make a camera for that inexpensive? I almost feel like the camera companies that have more money are releasing these great cameras at low prices to choke out these camera companies that are struggling even more.
Yeah, I mean, Canon has a vlogging camera at $900 and it's full frame, but I think Panasonic could do the S6 for $1,500
Yeah.
if they put in like a low-end 12 megapixel sensor, which would be fine for video-centric applications, and just give it 4K 60 and a flip screen and like all the nice vlogging features that they've been working on. But they got to get the price point down if they're going to get any sort of wide adoption. Like, I'd like to see it at $1,000, and
Yeah.
it's definitely possible. At least it is possible for Canon and Sony, who make their own sensors. I'm not sure it's possible for Panasonic. And we'll definitely see more L-mount glass, because right now that's a real weakness in the L-mount, is there just is really limited lenses, particularly in sports and wildlife. Like, if you want a telephoto lens, a big telephoto lens, it's like you just can't do that stuff with the Panasonic, and they don't want to eliminate that segment of the market. So
you think they're going to come out with sports and wildlife stuff?
I think they will, but I don't think you think they will.
No, I don't. I think that they're going to focus on just like the vlogging and video stuff, and then that S5 was awesome, and they came out with a bunch of like cool technology. I was impressed by that camera. So I think they're going to keep developing those lines. Sports and wildlife, I mean, that would be nice, I agree, but they're so expensive and so niche. How many people have really long glass?
Yeah, that's true. And also their depth from defocus system, like, I see it kind of fall off when you start to attach big telephoto lenses. So maybe they just don't have the tech to really do it well.
Yeah.
Right now, at least.
Okay, let's talk about Canon now, because Canon has had a big year in 2020. So do you think 2021 will be the same? Are they just going to keep this party rolling? And yeah, we think so.
Some of this comes from CanonRumors.com, and they have been very reliable in the past. And the stuff that they're rumoring is pretty big stuff that really could be devastating to the other companies.
I think Canon's playing for keeps right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A few years ago, we predicted a forthcoming $500 full-frame Canon, and I think we're inching towards that. We thought it was going to take 5 years. The rumor is there's going to be a compact full-frame Canon RC priced below the $900 Canon RP. So maybe it's going to be $700 or $800. And I think to do this, they have to go bare bones with it. Like a 20 megapixel sensor, a flip screen, but no electronic viewfinder. I think they need to strip it down as much as possible. Of course, just like one card slot. But I think it can be done, and I think there's a huge market for it.
I think there is a huge market. I get people asking me what camera they should buy their kid or what camera they should buy their spouse, and the magic number is $500. I don't know why the average person thinks that's what a camera should cost, especially now that phones are so expensive. They're like $1,200.
Yeah, this one $1,500 on a new iPhone, but for a camera, $500.
I mean, I guess your phone does a lot of different things, but yeah, $500 for a camera, but $800 is close.
I have a lot of confidence that is coming. Canon Rumors also says there's going to be something priced between the $900 RP and the $2,600 R6. Canon Rumors says it's not going to be the Canon R Mark II. But that sure is what it sounds like to me. So that's what I'm calling it, and I think it'll be around $2,000. I bet they'll use the same 30 megapixel sensor because it's awesome, and it sort of blew away the Sony a7 III.
Yeah.
And then, very predictably, it'll have full width 4K, which will be a first for that particular segment, as well as a flip screen, and maybe let's call it 10 frames per second. And 2 card slots, importantly. I don't think they're going to release another 1 card slot camera at that price point.
So people are talking about a Canon R5S, and that would be like a $4,900 souped up version of the R5 with 90 megapixels.
Oh, do you want that? Are you excited for 90
This is not the
megapixels?
camera for me. This sounds like a Tony camera.
I love megapixels, man. I just love it.
No, you do. It hurts me. And then they're rumoring pixel shift to 300 megapixels.
Yeah, that's where if you have it on a tripod, the sensor moves around and takes multiple pictures and makes a super high-res picture, which I also think that's super cool.
Yeah, that's right up your alley. This is like the Tony camera. If there's an R5S with 90 megapixels, it's got your name all over it.
But you know what? I'll bet they'll get the pixel shift to actually work in the real world. Because other camera companies have it, but when I tested out real world stuff, it never works. Like there's no tripod, there's no place to put it that is steady enough for it to work reliably.
I don't know. We'll see.
Other than that, I think it'll be the same body with a flip screen and probably more limited video capabilities. Because how are you going to do, like, you can't do 8K out of a 90 megapixel sensor. And then I think 2021 is the year when Canon finally releases a sports mirrorless body. 1DX series mirrorless camera, so I'll call it the Canon R1. And we priced appropriately, like $6,000, $7,000, probably that same 20 megapixel sensor, but a ridiculous frame rate with an electronic shutter, like 30 frames per second, stills. And it can work. Like we've used the R5, the autofocus system is awesome. That's what we were waiting for. I think they'll eliminate the viewfinder blackout like the A9, but also really, really reduce the lag to almost nothing.
That's going to be crucial. That's absolutely what kept me from going from a DSLR for wildlife to a mirrorless until this year. So they need to get rid of that lag.
And I bet they'll stick it in a big 1DX style body. Maybe not quite that big, like probably a little bit smaller, but it'll be weather sealed and probably have a fixed screen. I don't think pro sports photographers want that flippy screen like the rest of us do.
And big battery.
Yes, big 1DX battery, probably the same battery.
What about new lenses for the Canon?
Canon Rumors does think we'll see like a whole bunch of new lenses, like more than a dozen lenses released in 2021. I think the standouts are a 35mm f1.2, a 400mm f2.8, and a new native mirrorless 600mm f4. But most of the lenses are going to be consumer grade lenses, like a 35mm f2, that kind of thing, like little zooms that consumers want, because they are releasing like lower end gear. So it's not all catering to professionals.
Yeah.
But that tends to be what people on YouTube get the most excited about.
Yeah,
right?
but I think it's exciting when they release really cool new gear that's just like that the average consumer can afford, you know?
Yeah.
Not the average consumer, but you know.
Yeah.
This is more of my wishful thinking. I want them to improve the battery. I love the R5. I just switched to that camera, but the battery was draining really quickly, and that was a problem that Sony had in their early mirrorless cameras. So I'm hoping that they improve the battery life or have a firmware update that at least improves the battery life.
I think 80% chance they release a firmware update for Chelsea specifically.
And then I want them to improve the cloud to a point where like, it's just so easy to offload your photos onto your phone.
Yeah, no more shuffling around memory
No more
cards,
shuffling.
Right? Like you want to just take the picture and it's on your phone, it's on your
Just
computer.
let me be lazy, don't
They got some refinement to do. Like the framework is there.
The framework is there. That's why I'm so excited. It's like, oh, like everything's like within reach. Just give it to us.
So in the comments down below, I want to hear what you think is going to happen in 2021 and also what you hope to happen, even if you don't think it's actually going to work out.
Dreams.
Yeah, what would you actually pay money for? That's what camera companies want to know. And because they'll go through the comments and see too. So you can speak directly to them in our comments. And thank you to our sponsor, Squarespace. You need a better online web presence than just your social media. So set up your own unique website, your own unique domain, and do it at squarespace.com/Chelsea. Just try it out. See how easy it is. See how great it works on desktops, on tablets, on mobile devices, on your smartphones. Check out the awesome analytics. And when you love it, sign up with the coupon code Chelsea and they'll give you 10% off.
I check people's websites to see how serious they are. Because if they just have social media, I'm like, okay, so what, you can't hire them? Like, where do I go? Where's their portfolio, their actual best shots instead of what's just chronological? Do they have a price page? Do they have an about? What's their experience? Like, a website is professional and it's helpful and it makes you look better. So get one.
And I also think it's very unprofessional when people don't have their own domain name. Like, I'm Tony at northrup.org. But some people are like Jackie420@gmail.com.
I mean, she sounds like a good time.
Yeah. Get your own domain name and your own website, and you'll just keep it forever, I promise.
Yeah. All right, thanks. And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast, the Picture This Photography Podcast, anywhere you get your podcasts. Thanks.
Bye.